Pastor Jeff Thomas, welcome to the Rattle.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Man, I'm so excited that you were able to sit down with us. I know you're a busy guy,
you.
and I think this week you had something every day this week.
I did. It was kind of a busy week, but God's good. I've been able to go and do and give him glory, and he's given me rest, and I feel good, man.
Well, good. So you'll be the first one that right out the gate. You're our first interview.
All right. It can only get better from here.
So Brother Rick was our first speaker at the conference, and I told him, I said, no pressure, but you're the first one, man.
There we go.
So, but I've heard your story a couple of times, and it's an amazing testimony and a story. And so when we were kicking this around, this idea of doing the interviews, you were absolutely one of the first ones that I wrote down. So, again, super excited to have you. So let's do a quick introduction.
All right.
And I wrote some notes because I didn't want to mess this part up. So, Pastor Jeff Thomas, you started out as a bivocational youth pastor at Start.
That's correct.
In 1993.
Yes, I'm an old man.
Yeah.
Yes. But I started young.
Started young? Started at 18?
I think I was 20, maybe, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, right at 20.
All right.
So I was young.
And you did that for 18 years.
Right. Off and on. There were a couple of years there where I backed out and let someone else come in, and then someone else would leave and they would say, hey, Jeff, can you? And of course I did it. So yeah, off and on 18 years, did that, enjoyed it, loved it. So, and
then from there you moved into the senior pastor role there at Start Baptist Church in March of 2012.
That's right. 13 years now. It's crazy. First of all, I never thought God would leave me there that long, and I never thought our people would put up with me that long, but it's gone so fast. Yeah, 13 years. 13 years.
Yeah, it don't seem like.
No, not at all.
No.
God's good.
Also married your high school sweetheart, Miss Marty.
Oh, yeah.
And y'all have been married for 33 years.
Yeah, 33 years this month, August 14th.
Oh, wow. Whew. So that's right around.
Getting close.
Yeah.
I need some anniversary gift ideas.
We'll see what we can do.
Thank you. Yeah, I've gotten 32. It just gets harder and harder. It's like, what do you keep getting? How do you keep this fresh? How do you keep it new? But I'm going to try.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. I may need some pointers.
There you go.
God also blessed y'all with 5 children.
Yes. Yeah.
Hillary, who passed away at 5 months.
That's right.
And Francie, Jacob, Katie, and Jonah.
Yes.
So, because when I was writing it down, I was like 2, and I had sent you the text.
We still have 2 that are in the house with us.
So that's...
And two that are out of the house. And we're trying to, kick the third out of the house, but she will not leave. So
she won't leave the payroll.
She likes it, So, well, we'll keep her, I guess, as long as she wants to stay.
All right. Well, let's kind of get into it.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about growing up, and then we can get into your story.
I tell people all the time, and I know it sometimes sounds cliche, but I've been a blessed man, blessed my whole life. I grew up with a mom and dad who loved me, a mom and dad who were present, mom and dad who did everything they could to help, their 3 boys have what they needed. My older brother, John, my younger brother, Chris. I can honestly say in my lifetime, I don't know what it's like to not be loved. My dad always loved us. My mom has always loved us. We went to a good school. We went to Start, school for a long time. My brother John was able to graduate there. Start consolidated, I believe, when I was a sophomore. So I went to Riverfield Academy for a few years. My little brother went there as well. So, good home, good schools. We went to Woodlawn Baptist Church when we were really, really young. I guess when I was in 7th or 8th grade.
Where was Woodlawn?
Woodlawn's in Rattle.
Okay.
And so my dad had lots of friends there, and that's just where we went. Around my 7th or 8th grade year in middle school, I guess it was, I was probably 11 or 12 years old. We started going to Start Baptist Church, and that's how, I've been there all of these years. So yeah, man, as far as my childhood and even my early adulthood, I've just been blessed. God really, really blessed me. Now, my dad passed away of a heart attack when I was 16. He was coaching my little brother, Chris, at the Rabel ballpark in a summer league game. Matter of fact, it was Memorial Day, May 29th, 1989. My older brother John was there. I was there. My mom, as a matter of fact, Marty was my girlfriend at the time. She was there, and we were watching my little brother play. He was pitching, and my dad, started coughing, and you could tell that there was something going on there. My brother John was had started college, and he physical therapist, so he had seen some things and said, "Hey, we probably need to get him to the hospital. Something's going on." So he was coaching with his best friend. My dad was Levon Grantham, who was a state trooper, and he had already called 911 and had an ambulance coming, and the ambulance had actually got to the ballpark, and I had my dad on one side, and my brother John had him on the other side, and he just turned around, looked at my mom, and said, "Pat, I'm not going to make it," and he dropped right there. Matter of fact, my brother was still pitching. My little brother was still pitching when that happened, and we went to the Rabel Hospital. We were there for a couple of hours, but Dr. Thompson and Dr. Sion, some of those guys came out to see my mom and my older brother and myself, and they said, your dad didn't make it past. Found out later it was a heart attack, massive heart attack. So we had some trauma there, but God was good to us. We had lots of family around us. Not going to say it wasn't hard for my mom, because it was. Hard for my little brother. Hard for me.
How old were y'all at the time? You said
my little brother Chris was 12. He would have turned 13 that year. I was a month away from turning 16, and my brother John was 19.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. But other than that episode in our lives, I don't have anything bad to say. Like, we just were blessed people for sure.
So you said you grew up in the church.
Yes.
And when were you saved? When was your salvation?
So that's a great, God's just got a really good sense of humor and a good way of putting things together. When we were going to Woodlawn, I happened to be in Wayne Smart's Sunday school class. As a matter of fact, his mother-in-law, Miss Dina Odom, had taught me, I guess, when I was 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, somewhere in that neighborhood. She taught me for a few years. Well, I moved on up, and we got into the boys' class, and I was in Mr. Wayne Smart's Sunday school class, and I was probably 12 years old, because this was before we moved to Start. So I was 12 years old, and Mr. Wayne Smart, like I said, I knew my dad's faith. I knew my mom's faith. I saw my brother get saved and baptized, and so I knew what it looked like, and I knew all the Bible stories. Like I said, I'd been in church my whole life, but Mr. Wayne Smart was teaching a Sunday school lesson, and I can remember it just like it was yesterday. He was teaching a Sunday school lesson, and he started talking about being accountable to God, how we are accountable to God for every word we've ever spoken, every action we've ever taken, that one day we will stand before him and we will have to give an account of our lives, how we lived. And I remember him saying, your mama, your daddy, your grandma, your grandpa, your preacher. He started naming off all these people that, I loved and looked up to. He said, well, they can't answer for you. You have to answer for you. And I just remember that lesson, and I remember that conversation. And so I went home and talked to my dad. And for a few weeks there, I was asking my dad all kinds of questions about what it meant to be accountable. And, ultimately he came down, made it very simple for me. He said, Jeff, do you know the difference between what is right and what is wrong? And I said, well, I think so. And he said, well, is it right to do this? Is it wrong to do this? And I could say yes or no. And I was right to all of it. He said, well, do you know what it means to sin? Do you know what sin is? And I knew what sin was. Yeah. I knew the biblical definition of sin. And so we just started talking about, those things. And we went to a revival at Start Baptist Church when we started kind of moving towards Start. Went to a revival. And I remember the preacher, he was preaching basically on the same thing, what it meant to be accountable to God and what it meant to be forgiven and set free from sin. And I just remember sitting in that pew scared to death because I didn't want to have to walk down that aisle in front of everybody. But I also remember the Holy Spirit of God just tugging my heart and saying, you know what to do. And so I walked down that aisle and I told that preacher, I said, I've never confessed Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I've always said I'm sorry when I got caught for things that I did wrong.
Yeah.
But I realized that there's a difference between being sorry and being repentant. And so that night I repented of my sin. I asked Jesus Christ to save me. There's no doubt he saved me. A couple of weeks later, I was baptized. And that happened. I think I was right at 13 years old because the conversation started when I was 12 in Mr. Wayne Smart's class. And it's crazy how now, Wayne Smart and I, we've been together for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So let me ask this. So you were saved at 15,
13. Yep.
When your father passed, in my line of work, I deal with a lot of grief.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of times there's a lot of anger.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of questioning.
Oh yeah.
Was it similar with?
Yes. How many ever times I can say yes, all of it. It was hard. I was 15 going on 16. I knew everything. And then I found out, I don't know everything. And I remember people praying that night. I remember people just gathered around praying. I remember praying out loud. I remember telling my little brother, Chris, hey, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But inside I was going, is it really going to be okay? Like, how are we supposed to do anything without our daddy? He had done everything for us. He literally, put food on the table, put clothes on us, taught us what was right and what was wrong. He still is to this day the greatest hero I've ever had in my life. So yes, I was in the moment. I was trying to do all the Bible stuff, all the spiritual stuff, but at the same time, I was going, God, I don't understand. God, my dad didn't do anything wrong. I started associating with, well, if this happened, then what was wrong? That's kind of what I was doing in my mind, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And so then I started saying, well, God, why us? Why our family? We're a good family. We're nice to people. We're respectful to people. My daddy sings in the choir and
y'all check off the box.
Oh yeah, we check the boxes. Yeah. And so yes, I had a hard time with that. Early on, maybe I could hide it pretty good, and I was telling people, hey, we're okay. But my mom had a very difficult time. She loved my dad, the only man she ever really loved, to this day. Has not remarried. She was, I guess, 39. My dad was 42 when he died. So my mom was 39 years old. Like I said, just, I saw all of that in the home, how she struggled. I tried to help her, tried to help my little brother. We assured my mom and I assured my older brother, John, go back to LSU, continue your education, go to school. We got this. We didn't have that. It was hard. Financially, we were good. My daddy, took care of that. We had people around us, but emotionally, it was hard. My mom, my little brother, I was trying to be the man of the house, and I was by no means a man. So yeah. A few months later, even for years, I was an angry person, angry young boy, trying to grow up into a man. I worked hard. I worked on the farm, made money, did things, took my little brother to school, took him home, went to practices with him, stuff like that, until he was able to, get his license and kind of do some things on his own. So there was a lot of times there when I was mad. I don't want to say that I was mad at God, but maybe I was a little angry at God, but I still trusted him, and I still saw how he was taking care of us. But at times I was like, you know what? I can't be a boy. I can't just be a teenager because I got to go home and make sure my mom's okay. I got to go home and make sure she's eating. I got to go home and make sure my little brother eats. So there were some of those situations and some of those circumstances, but yeah, I mean, we did well considering we did well.
Was there anybody any guy that kind of stepped in,
Oh,
or
yeah.
somebody
Oh,
that
yeah.
you looked up to that kind of helped you through?
Yeah, he's my cousin by marriage. But he's definitely a father figure in my life. Mike Barham. We had grown up with him and Sally, with my Aunt Nancy and my Uncle James. Again, Uncle James, he was my great uncle. He was my dad's uncle, but they lived right beside us. Aunt Nancy and Uncle James had a big part of making sure that we were okay and taken care of. But my cousin Mike, um, he was always there for, especially for me and my brothers. Um, but even to this day, if I need anything, Mike's usually the first guy I can call, even today, and he will be there for me. So yes, I had him. Also at the church when we started going to start, we had a great youth group, and Don and Sherry Parker were working with the youth. If you want to call them youth ministers, that's what I call them. That's what they were. And Don Parker is also a man that I love and look up to, and he absolutely was a father figure in my life when I didn't have one. So yeah, I definitely did. But again, this is how God works, because all of these men I'm naming, Uncle James, Mike, Don, godly men who love the Lord, and showed me that, modeled that for me. So God bless me.
Yeah, I was fixing to say
it could have been anybody else. It could have been anywhere else, but God had men lined up who loved him and knew how to love me. And I can't take any credit for that. And I don't think any of those guys would ever want credit for that, but that's just how it is. That's just how it is. God, he had it lined up for the right men at the right time to be in my life.
And you mentioned at the time that Miss Marty was your girlfriend.
Yeah.
And she plays a huge part in your story. So kind of.
Yeah. So we started dating when I was a sophomore. She was a freshman. I remember the first time we got to hang out together with our moms and dads. So her mom and dad, this was way back, I think when the Pecanland Mall maybe first opened. I don't know how, long time ago, back in the 80s. That's all I know. It would have been 88, probably the fall of 88. But we were sitting there in the food court, and my dad was sitting there, and Marty walked up, and she's got this incredible smile, which, like I said, that's her. My dad said, she has got a pretty smile. He said, that's a pretty little girl. He said, you better take care of her. I said, I'm going to try, Daddy. I remember that conversation.
Yeah.
And so they walked up, and we met, Mr. Doc and Miss Trudy. And again, two people in my life that God, again, how God works, because Doc and Trudy were never my in-laws. They were my mama and my daddy. They always treated me like their son. And again, looking back now, I knew Marty's dad on this earth longer than I knew my dad. I mean, I was 15 when my dad died, going on 16. I knew Marty's dad longer than that, since we've been married. So yeah, Marty, she saw me go through that, and she saw me act out, and just be angry and live like there were no rules sometimes. And she could have very easily quit or said, I don't want any part of this. And she didn't. She stayed with me. And so she had a huge part of me growing up, and her mom and dad, and her sister as well, Leah. So they're my family.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
that's God. I can't, again, I love how God works, because none of us can take credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So tell me, we graduate high school.
Yep.
And kind of tell me how we slipped into this youth pastor role.
Yeah. So Marty and I, we dated all through high school. When I graduated, I decided to go to NLU, ULM now, but it was NLU then. So I decided to go to NLU. I was going to, play baseball, and, I didn't even care what I majored in. I was just going to play ball. But I was good in English. That was my one subject that I loved. I loved to read. I loved to write. So I decided, you know what, I'll get an English degree and, play some ball, and wound up having surgery on my leg, my ankle. And I remember, Dr. Tretton and Dr. Brown, the guys that were working on me, said, you may not be able to play baseball ever again. And that was hard. That was a hard conversation. And I remember my brother John, because he had kind of started med school, all that stuff. And so I remember my brother John saying, hey, you can coach, you can teach. You'd be good at that. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And I remember, Marty and I were out eating one night, and I was like, we're going to be together. We may as well get married. Very romantic way of asking, didn't even have a ring at the time. I was like, well, we ought to get married and just go to school together. And she was like, well, yeah. And so eventually I did go buy a ring, and I was romantic. I got down on my knee and said, will you marry me? And she said, yes. But yeah, so we both went to NLU. I think she started out in nursing school, but found out real fast that she didn't like that. So she started in elementary education. And so we got married young, had great time, had some hard times, but again, we had family around us who loved us, who helped us. And, I don't know that I would ever recommend, especially to my own children, to get married when you're 19 and 17. I mean, Marty's daddy had to sign the marriage license. I don't know that I would ever recommend to anybody to do that, but it was right for us.
Yeah.
And, God's been good.
That's excellent. So again, we get through NLU, we're graduated, and tell me what comes next. All
right. So when I graduate, I had been helping at Riverfield Academy. I was helping Donnie Foster, my old coach, coach a little bit, and they offered me a job. So I graduated. I actually took a couple of summer classes because I needed to get the education part of it. I had an English degree in liberal arts, but I needed the education side of it. So I took a couple of summer classes. So I graduated in August. Our first daughter, Hillary, was born in June of 1996. That's the year I graduated. Marty was going through one of her elementary blocks, and she graduated in December of 96. So I had a job lined up, and I started at Riverfield Academy, teaching English, coaching everything, football, baseball, basketball, even did a little track when I wasn't on the baseball field. Marty was lined up to start at Rattle Elementary in January. So Hillary was the first grandchild on either side of our families. Like I said, I had just was getting ready to graduate. And I've got the pictures of me with my cap and gown on at NLU with little baby Hillary in my arms. And, Marty's got pictures of her when she was in her elementary block, 9 months pregnant. I mean, life was good. At the time, I had been working at a place called McRae's in the mall. It's Belk now.
Yes.
I was working there part-time. Marty was working a little while for Hike and Humble at the eye doctors. And then she was working at the Disney store in the mall so that we could kind of be together and go to work together and eat together and those kind of things. So now we graduated college and we're looking forward to teaching, coaching, got a new baby. And
so when did Stark come along and say, hey?
So in the midst of that, in the midst of me going to college, we had an interim youth pastor. That was actually the year after we got married, 1993. And she was going back to school. And Don and Sherry Parker, who I mentioned were my youth directors, they came to Marty and I and said, you guys have so much energy. You've helped us in many ways. We know you're young, but we know your hearts and we know you love the Lord. Would you consider doing what we do? Would you consider being the youth directors? Jeff, would you be the youth pastor? We'll still teach Sunday school. We'll still be here for you, but you take the lead in that. And so I had never really even considered that. I love church. I love being involved in church. But I just wanted to kind of help. I didn't ever want to be the guy in charge, but the kids love me and they love Marty and we love them. And so Marty and I prayed about it and God gave us a peace. And so in the fall of 93, we started working with students, and we did that all the way through college. Even when we both had jobs lined up to teach, we still y'all
were busy.
Yes.
Y'all were busy.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. and I say all of that. We were definitely fired up and excited about that. But when the baby came along, we knew, okay, hey, this is going to be a little more difficult.
Yeah.
So we had already started thinking we may better, back up and let somebody else do this, and we'll just do like Don and Sherry did. We'll be here to support and be in the background. And so after Hillary was born, we actually did do that. We said, hey, we want to help. We'll teach Sunday school, but y'all need to find a youth pastor to take, my spot. And they did.
Okay. And how long did?
So I would say probably year and a half, 2 years or so before my next stint. It was after our daughter passed.
And which that's something, good Lord willing, never have to cross.
Right. I would never wish that on anybody, even my worst enemy. I would never wish a parent to lose a child.
No.
No, that's.
So if you don't mind,
Yeah.
kind of tell me a little bit about, because I know this is where things really.
Yeah, it's still hard. I tell people I might be good at telling the story, but it's hard. So after I graduated and started at Riverfield, and Marty was now entering her last block of elementary education at NLU, my mom, took care of Hillary. And so we were blessed that my mom was retired and was able to do that. But she was right at close to 5 months old, and we had a fall carnival at Riverfield Academy one night. Matter of fact, it was October 31st of 1996. And so Marty, I was already at the school, obviously, because I was working there teaching coaches. So Marty, brings Hillary, and she's in her little stroller, and we're walking around, and we noticed, and this is how crazy it is. She had never been sick. She was trying to crawl and sit up and do things that normally a 5-month-old probably isn't doing yet.
Yeah.
So everything was fine. And that night we noticed that when we were pushing her around, her little right eye was twitching. It was just moving, like she couldn't control it, but she wasn't crying. Like it didn't seem to bother her, but it sure bothered us. Like it was just moving. Well, our cousins, Jimmy and Stacy Gandy, we knew that they were eye doctors, and so Marty said, well, maybe we should get, Jimmy or Stacy to look at it. And so we did. We went to see Jimmy and Stacy, and they looked at it and they said, well, there's definitely something there, the optical nerve. There's something causing that to happen, but we can't see anything from our vantage point.
Mm-hmm.
So they recommended that we go to a doctor in Monroe, and it was Dr. Bermudez, and I love him. Incredible doctor, incredible man. Anyway, so we went the next day, November 1st, made an appointment and got in quick, thanks to Stacy and Jimmy. And so they did all these tests. They, drew some little blood, came back, and they were like, well, we need to do more. And since this is her eye, it could be something in her little skull. We need to do a scan. And so obviously, we were scared. Marty and I were scared. But we agreed, signed all the paperwork. We did it. And we were sitting in this little room at St. Francis. And, they took her back, and they brought us into another room with these screens in front of us, almost like big screen TVs. And they said, well, we want to show you, we think we know what's going on, and we want to show you what it is. And so when they put the pictures up on the screen, it was pretty obvious that there was a tumor. They told us it was about the size of a golf ball. Now you can imagine an infant's head, a golf ball was pretty big.
Yeah.
And so you could see it. It was sitting right behind her ear. And what they told us was that was what was pushing against the optical nerve and causing her eye to twitch. When they came back and sat us down, and they were very strict, the doctors and the hospital, we were the parents. We were legal adults. They would only talk to us. So we couldn't have our parents in there with us. We couldn't have anybody else in there with us. But they told us, Dr. Bermudez said, this is a tumor. a cancerous tumor. And, you know, there's really two options. We can do the surgery and try to remove this tumor, but I cannot guarantee you that she will live or that there will be any quality of life if she does live. If we don't take this tumor out, she could die within weeks or months, and it could be painful because of the way this tumor is growing. Yeah, we were devastated. We didn't know what to say. We didn't know what to do. He allowed us to go out and grieve with our families. And of course, I leaned on my brother John a lot, you know, with his background, you know, with med school and things. And he did the best he could, but I mean, he's still only 24, 25 years old.
Yeah.
It's not like he's, you know, got a lot of experience in this. And after a lot of prayer, we decided that we would do the surgery. And so we scheduled the surgery for November the 4th. I mean, this was quick. I don't even know if I can explain how the timetable. We saw her eye twitching on October 31st. We had a doctor's appointment on November the 1st. The next morning on November the 2nd, we decided, let's do the surgery. So we did the surgery on November 3rd. I remember Hillary was just smiling, big brown eyes, you know. We were loving on her. And I remember her sitting in that little thing that they rolled her off on, and she was just looking at me and looking at Marty. And we said, it's okay, baby. It's okay, baby. We didn't want to let her go, but we knew it was time to go. And we said, we'll see you again. And they took her out. You know, they did the surgery, came back, and they told us that they got what they could, but there was no way they could get it all because it was just too attached. And they said, now all we can do is wait and see. So late that afternoon on November the 5th, Dr. Bermudez came in and told us that there was no brain activity on the monitors, that it was the respirator, the machine that was keeping her alive, and that he didn't think that she would live if they turned it off, but he could not make that decision. And so my brother John, and at the time his fiance, who is his wife now, Dawn, stayed in the hospital with us. We never left. And St. Francis was so good to us. Cannot tell you how good they were to us, but they actually set up a room and brought beds in so that John and Dawn could sleep in the room with us at night. And so we just prayed and cried, and Marty and I decided that we would, you know, take her off the respirator. We asked them if it was possible for us to be in there, and that either I could sit and hold her or at least have a hold of her. And they agreed to let us do that. So again, a God thing now, wasn't then in my mind, but God thing now. You know, when she was born, Dr. Smith handed her to me, and she took her first breath in my hands, and they cut the machine off, and she was in my hands with her last breath. So that was on November the 6th, 1996. And still the hardest day of my life. Even harder than the day my daddy died, May 29th. May 29th, 1989. So yeah, it was hard. Hard few months. Hard year and a half. I'm gonna be honest with you. I tried to quit. I tried to quit on God. And because I tried to quit on God, I tried to quit on Marty. I tried to quit on my family. I was as angry as I'd never been in my life. I remember my little brother Chris, you know, hugging me at the hospital, saying, "What is God doing? Like he took Dad. Why is he taking Hillary? Isn't this?" I remember my little brother Chris, "Isn't this enough? Like why does this keep happening?" And I told him, "No, Chris, we're not going there. I did all the good things. I did all the right things.
Yeah.
I was a strong guy, as strong as I could be. at least on the outside. I tried to protect Marty. I tried to protect us. I tried to tell myself and tell everybody around me, it's okay. God is good. God's got this. But inside, I was going like, God, I don't like this. I don't understand this. I don't know that there's anything you can tell me to make me understand this. And that's been the hardest part of our marriage. Because I remember months later, Marty cried a lot. I didn't. I didn't like crying. I didn't want to cry. She wanted people to come over, to be with people and people to pray with us and pray for us. And I was tired of it. And I just remember one night, she was crying and I said, I'm tired. If that's what you want to do, fine, but I'm done with that. I'm not doing this anymore. As a matter of fact, you probably don't want to be with me anymore, so we may as well just get a divorce. I mean, I said those words. Hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. That's something that came out of my mouth. But it did. And I tried to stay on. I went to that gym at Ripfield, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and just shot ball. And if I wasn't shooting ball, I would just lay down in the bleachers because I didn't want to go home. Knowing that she was at home by herself, crying, wondering where I was at. I was mean to people. I was mean to even probably the kids that I was coaching and teaching, other teachers. I was mean to my mother-in-law and my father-in-law. Didn't want to talk to them, didn't want to see them, didn't want to see my mom. Didn't really want to see my brothers much, but I could handle them a little bit better than anybody else. And so it was probably the darkest part of my life. And I wish I could take it all back,
So what was the turning point? What you said that you talked about wanting to give up on God and marriage, and what?
The biggest turning point was Marty. I remember that maybe the second time I said, why don't we just get a divorce? I remember Marty saying, no, you are not divorcing me and you are not leaving me because I will go wherever you are. She was a tough bird. I'm just going to tell you. And she said, no, you will not. And no, I am not quitting. And I don't care if you do quit. I'm just going to be a nag and I'm going to nag you. And I'm not going nowhere. I remember. And I was like, well, we'll see. And she said, yeah, we will. And, she never hit me or abused me, but man, she probably wanted to. But so I remember one night she said that, and I was like, well, I'm out of here. And I left, and I didn't know where to go, so I went to the gym. And I remember going to the gym, and I forgot the password and set off the alarm, and a sheriff's officer come up and said, Coach Thomas? I was like, yeah, the code word is apple, but I couldn't remember the code to put in the. He said, well, and he gave me the numbers to punch. I was like, thanks. He said, what are you doing? I was like, man, I just need to shoot some ball. He's like, okay. So anyway, he drove off. And so I was in that gym shooting ball. Now this would have been probably the end of the school year, or maybe even summer. This was probably I would say May of 97. So this is not quite a year after Hillary died, but close. So I was in that gym shooting ball, and shot the ball. The ball, came off the rim, and I went to grab the ball, and I tripped and fell. And I tripped and fell hard, hit the floor hard. And I remember in the moment, I reached up and I slammed the floor, and I said, God, that's your fault. I blamed God for tripping on a basketball in a gym at 2 o'clock in the morning. I almost broke my arm. My arm was red. I remember having to go to the doctor because I thought I dislocated my elbow. I didn't, but that night I slapped that floor, and I blamed God for tripping on the floor. And I said, what do you want from me? And I'm just going to tell you, okay, I didn't know how to explain it. But I heard God say, you're exactly where I want you. Like I heard that. And I was on the floor, like on my face. And I remember turning around and looking at the doors, trying to figure out who was that talking. Well, it wasn't nobody, because I was the only one there. Who else is up at 2 o'clock in the morning at the gym shooting ball? And I I was crying, and I said, God, if this is where you want me, why do you want me here? And I just remember him just saying, I want you to repent. Like it was clear. And I don't know how many times I said, I'm sorry, God, I'm sorry, God, I'm sorry, God, but I said it a bunch. And I don't know how I got up off that floor, but before I know it, I'm sitting in the truck and God's saying, go home to your wife, go home to your wife. And I don't remember how I got there. Like it's just all a blur. But I went home and I was going to wake Marty up, or at least I thought it was. She was sitting in the bed with a Bible, praying, reading scripture. And I just remember coming in and just jumping on the bed and grabbing her, saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And she said, what is wrong? What is wrong? What is wrong? And I said, me, I'm wrong. I've been wrong. I'm the one. I'm sorry. Please don't leave me. Please don't quit. And she said, Jeff, I'm not. And we cried a long time. And I remember that summer, the school allowed me to kind of relinquish my coaching duties that summer, and we went to stay with Marty's sister in Washington, D.C. for over a month. I know it was the whole month of June into July. And we just walked around D.C., and just talked and tried to figure some things out. And that was the turning point. Still a lot of hard stuff that went on,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but that was the turning point.
So, and as a pastor, you've come across people that have lost
Yes.
children, and that because everybody's been at that
That's
place where what do you say?
yeah.
What are your
So I've been able to be there now for many people. Some who have lost infants. I've preached those funerals for infants. I've had some who lost, their adolescent children, their teenage children. I've had some that have lost adult children. And what I have found is that I don't really have these magical words to say other than I've been in a similar place. And I know how good God is and how good he will always be. And I'm just here. What I found out is that people don't need your words as much as they just need you. And God taught me that a lot through the years. Just be present. Just be present. Many times you don't have to tell people that you've been there. They already know. And it says more that you're just there with them than trying to coach them through it or lead them through it. Now, don't get me wrong. I've shared many scriptures. I've shared many prayers. But I believe more than anything, it's just presence. Because I know for me, looking back, it was my brother, John and Dawn, being there so much with us. We had some good friends in the church, April and Wiley, Don and Sherry. We had some good people that were just there with us, not trying to fix anything, just trying to be there with us, just grieving with us, just crying with us, just saying, yeah, I know, I don't understand either. So yeah, there was a lot of that.
Did it change your outlook on ministry?
Yes.
On how you
Oh yes,
approached
absolutely.
everything?
I remember early on recognizing that I was still too broken to minister. So I actually started to pull back from trying to do youth stuff. Even Sunday school, we stopped teaching. At the time we were teaching a college and career Sunday school class. I asked, someone else to teach that. So we kind of pulled back from serving and leading because I recognized, okay, I tried to quit on God. I tried to quit on my marriage. I'm not the kind of guy that needs to be standing up front of people telling them it's going to be okay, because I didn't know yet that it was going to be okay. But I knew God never gave up on me. I never felt once that God quit on me or gave up on me, even though I tried. But I was not ready to lead. So early on, we pulled back and realized that we needed some help. So we talked to our pastor, Ken Freeman, who's an evangelist. He came many times to Louisiana, not to preach a revival, but to see me and Marty and just talk with us and share with us. Brother Lee Thomas, who was a pastor of ours that had moved on, but he came back to see us. So we got our counseling, we got our help spiritually before we started to try to plug back in and serve and minister. But absolutely, I can see how, this is Corinthians, right? This is what Paul said, that God who comforts us in our times of grief will help us come alongside of others and comfort them with the same comfort that God himself comforted us with. I absolutely saw that and began to understand that. So I would say probably a year and a half, 2 years in is when we started God really started healing us and empowering us and enabling us to plug back in and minister to students and be a part of a healthy part of the church.
When did you feel the call to become a pastor?
Pastor, wow. So I did a lot of youth pastoring in those years. I was coaching and teaching at Washita Christian. Loved that school. Love those people still to this day. Love them. They're a part of my family. I hope they feel the same to me. But I'd been at OCS for going on 10 years. Head coach of basketball, teaching English, honors English. Really, really thought that was my calling. Really thought that was my life, to be honest with you. I'd always said I was going to be the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. I was going to replace Roy Williams, when he stepped down. Jeff Thomas was going to be the next coach. And so those last couple of years at OCS were really our most successful years. And God's got a great sense of humor, and his plan is way better than ours and way above ours. I was actually preparing for the playoffs. We were, I think, the number 4 or 5 seed in the state.
And this was before the split.
Yes, that's right.
This was when it was.
Yeah. This is when everybody was playing, and so we were really good. And now don't get me wrong, I had some really good basketball players. So it wasn't just Coach Thomas is really good. I had some really good athletes who believed in my system and made the system work. But anyway, I was still bivocational youth pastor, but I was also considered the associate pastor. So I was making visits, hospital visits, when our pastor couldn't. And my fellow English teacher, Miss Brazier, who was right next door to me, one day, a young lady that was not a member of our church, but a member of our church knew her, had a baby. And her and the baby were not doing well, but they were okay, but they just weren't doing well. They wanted me to go see them and pray for them. So I said, absolutely. So I had planning period right before lunch, and I decided I'm going to go, see this lady, see this baby, pray with them, let them know that our church is there for them if they need us. So God, about a week before that, had woke me up and basically said, I want you to preach the gospel. And I basically said, I'm already doing that. But it was pretty clear that God wanted me to quit coaching and teaching. But I was trying to talk God into let me just keep preaching like I was preaching so that I could keep coaching and teaching. Marty and I had prayed about this, and she said, well, just keep praying. The Lord will show you. So anyway, I'm going out of my classroom, and Miss Brazier sees me, and she thinks I'm going to an early lunch. And she said, hey, well, would you grab me some lunch? And I was like, well, I'm not actually going to lunch. I'm actually going to hospital to see a young mom who had a baby, and it's not going well. And Miss Brazier said to me, Jeff, if I was that young mom and I had a little baby and I didn't have anybody else, you're the exact guy I would want to come and pray over me and be there for me. She had no idea what God was already doing in my heart and life. And her conversation was the confirmation that I needed, that God's plan and God's purpose and God's way was the right one. So anyway, I got in my truck, went to see this young mom, prayed for her, prayed for the baby. got back in the parking lot, and I was in my truck crying like a baby because I knew that's what God wanted me to do. I still didn't want to do it. Still didn't want to do it. And so
What was the fear?
I wanted to coach. I don't know that it was a fear. I really don't. I don't think it was a fear. I wanted to coach. I wanted to teach. That's what I wanted to do. And I thought I was good at it. You know, I mean, I don't want to be that self-righteous guy, but I thought I was pretty good at it. And if I was good at it, why would God want me to do something else that I don't know if I'm going to be good at it or not? And to be honest with you, I had seen pastors come and go left and right at Start Baptist Church. And I didn't want to be one of those guys, to be honest with you. I don't know if it was a fear as much as it was that I just wanted what I wanted.
Yeah.
But I will say, Marty and I prayed, and I remember her saying, you've said that God is sovereign, and you've said that God is in control, but is he really? In your life, is he really? And so again, Marty, you know, the strong person she is, really just said it. She read scripture and she prayed over me the next morning. And this was before I'd said anything to anybody else. I went to Coach Harper and I said, Coach Harper, I know this is not the right time. I know this is not the right situation, but I'm done coaching and teaching after this season. And it's because God's calling me into ministry. And I remember him saying, well, buddy, if it was anything else, I'd try to talk you out of it, but I'm not trying to talk you out of that because that would not be good for you or for us. And I assured him that I was going to finish our season and that my goal was to win the state championship and, you know, to ride out, you know, a winner. And I remember he prayed for me in that office and prayed that no matter what the results of basketball were or what anything else, that I would stay in God's will and that I would just be who God wanted me to be. And I just remember being so at peace because of him and his conversation with me. But so we didn't tell anybody anything. It was just me and Marty. Coach Harper knew. Nobody else knew. We were the only ones who knew. Finished out the season. We wound up losing. You know, we had beaten Delhi a week before the playoffs started. And Delhi was who I lost my last game to coaching. So go figure. Yeah. Played at Rattle High School, you know, my own stomping ground. And they beat us, and they advanced to the semifinals. I think it was the quarterfinals. They advanced to the semifinals, and we were out. But I told my team, you know, that I loved them, and that what better way to go out than to go out with them, and that God was calling me into ministry. And all those boys gathered around me in that locker room and prayed over me and loved on me, and that was it. That was it. And look, I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if I was going to be a start. I didn't have a ministry degree. I had, you know, a bachelor's degree in English, a master's degree in English. I don't know what I'm doing. At Start Baptist Church, they said, hey, you're already, you know, the associate pastor, youth pastor. Why don't you just stay with us? And why don't you go and get you a ministry degree? And at the time, Caskey School of Divinity had begun at Louisiana College. Brother Jeff Smart and quite a few other pastors had decided that they were going to go there and pursue a master's degree in biblical studies. And I said, you know what? I'll apply. And I got accepted, full scholarship. I never had to pay $1 for it, but I got a master's degree in biblical studies while I was youth pastor and associate pastor at Start. And our pastor wound up resigning and leaving. They asked me to fill in, and so I did. Pastor search team, you know, got together, and I even gave them some resumes of some pretty cool guys that I would have loved to have served under.
Yeah.
As, you know, and long story short, they came to me and said, you know, you're one of the ones we're considering. And I said, well, I didn't give you a resume. I didn't give you my resume. And they, well, you're kind of living your resume.
Yeah.
And I said, well, and they told me they had narrowed it down to 2 or 3. And I said, well, go chase those guys real hard. You know, if the Lord wants one of them, then we'll know.
Yeah.
He shut the door on them. They came to me and said, you're the only one left. And I said, well, let me push a little harder, you know, let me meet with ministry teams and let's just see what kind of response we get. And I started meeting with the pastor search team pretty regular. And they brought me before the church February. the end of February 2012, and Sunday morning, that first Sunday, March, they voted on me and elected me as their pastor.
You remember what your first sermon was?
Acts chapter 2. The church that studies the word together,
Yeah.
the church that prays together,
Yeah.
the church that serves together is the church that God blesses, and he will add to their number daily those being saved. Acts chapter 2, baby. I didn't know where else to go but there. I'm like, okay, don't put all this pressure on me.
Yeah.
Let's just all get in here and do this together.
Yeah.
Because the Bible says the Lord will add to the number daily those being saved, not Brother Jeff, not anybody else. And I truly believe that. And I'll be honest with you, 13 years later, that's exactly what he has done, is doing, and continues to do. So yeah.
You said Miss Marty was in on it from the get-go. No questions, reservations.
She didn't marry a pastor.
Yeah.
I don't know that if you would have asked her ever if that's what she wanted, she would have said yes, but she never wavered. She never floundered. She never, I mean, she was consistent. She always wanted me to do what God wanted me to do. And if that's coaching and teaching, then do it. If that's here, if that's there, wherever. And she always said, I'm going where you go. She always said that. So.
And at this time, y'all, we've got more children.
Oh, yeah,
and
we got lots of children.
Y'all are in the thick of things.
Yeah, and look, Marty was teaching at OCS.
Yeah,
our kids were going to OCS. And you asked me kind of what fear. I guess if there was a fear, it was like, okay, if I leave after all this work I've done, I'm building this program up. How are they gonna treat Mark? How are they gonna treat my kids?
Yeah.
That was in the back of our minds. What do we do with our kids? What do we do? Man, they've been good to my wife and good to my kids. That was just a fear I had that was never should have been a fear.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Marty, stayed at OCS all those years. My kids, Jonah's not graduated yet, but all my kids graduated from OCS. So yeah, God's good.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. So tell me this, as pastor and lead pastor, has there been a mountaintop experience of this is almost like confirmation? I did exactly what God asked me to do, and this is confirmation. I'm exactly where I need to be.
God reveals his glory over and over again. I don't know that he would ever have to anymore for me to just believe I've done what he wanted me to do, but he keeps doing it. So people ask me all the time, why start? Why start Baptist? Like, that's unusual that somebody would grow up in a church and become their pastor, and not just become their pastor, but just be there. My secretary told me, this was a few years ago, my secretary, she was looking over some records and she said, Brother Jeff, she said, you're the longest tenured pastor in the history of the church. I was like, no, that's not right. That's not accurate. She said, yeah, there's only been 2 that pastored more than 10 years, and you've pastored for 10 years and so many months. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, I didn't set out to do that, and I never thought about it, but that's just crazy. So I look back and I'm going, wait a minute. There are deacons who are serving with me now who are in my youth group. There are kids now who I've preached their weddings and I've baptized their children. Like, you talk about mountaintop experiences, like, why would God allow me and then use me and then bless me to see all of this unfold? Like, that doesn't make sense. And I'm going to be like, I haven't earned that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not anything I've earned or deserved. That's God. That's how good he is. And I'm not trying to make this a cookie cutter thing, but that's just what he's done for me. And so I've seen over and over again that if you will be faithful in the little things, he'll be faithful in things that you can't even possibly imagine. Mountaintop experiences, absolutely. But, and there've been hard times, there've been hard situations. I've had churches contact me, in view of a call.
Mm-hmm.
And we've even gone and looked and talked and prayed, and, God just shut doors and keeps his doors start open. And people ask me all the time, are you just going to preach and start forever? And I guess the selfish part of me would say, yeah, I love it here and I enjoy it. But I've always said, I'm going to do whatever God wants me to do, because I have found out that his way is absolutely the best way. His plans, even though I may not always understand it, his plans are always the best plans. So yeah, there's been lots of confirmations, but I would say just those relationships and seeing people grow in their faith, seeing people overcome hard situations, like we were able to overcome. Man, that's a joy. When I see a daddy and a mama leading their little kid to the Lord, when I see one of my former students
Yeah.
get in those baptismal waters and baptize his son or his daughter, I don't need no more confirmation, God. Thank you. That was good. It's almost overwhelming. Like, I'm like, God, it's enough. Like, please stop, because you're overwhelming me and I don't understand why you're so good.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at right now in my life.
Have there ever been any times where you're like, because for every mountaintop, there's a valley?
Oh, there's been some. Oh, yeah. I remember early on, and I tell this to young pastors, just be careful. Early on, I thought I had to study hard, which I love studying. Okay. I have all kind of education, so I love that. But I thought that it was my job to study hard, preach hard, and it was my job to make sure there were people in those altars. I really felt that. I really felt this, and I wish, looking back, nobody ever put that on me, but I put that on myself. I was like, I'm the one that's supposed to make sure this church grows and make sure this church is healthy. Early on, man, I worked myself to death, and literally, there were times when I would study so hard and preach so hard, there was nobody in the altar. And we weren't paying a water bill because we're running water in the baptistry. And there were times when I thought, okay, well, maybe I'm not the right guy. Maybe I need to go somewhere else. Maybe I'm not doing what God wants me to do. Maybe I should go back to teaching or coaching. So there were some of those moments where, I thought I was preaching a good word, but there was not a response. And so maybe I wasn't preaching a good word, or maybe I wasn't preaching what I was supposed to. There was very much some of that, but I'll go back, thankful for good godly deacons and good men in ministry like Brother Rick, Brother Jeff Smart, who've been doing this a long time, that I could call and they would speak truth into my life and saying, is God telling you that, or are you telling you that? So yeah, there were some definite moments there where I questioned my calling, questioned my positioning. So yeah, there've been those moments.
And this may answer my next question. So if with where you're at now,
Yeah,
if you had to go back and tell the Jeff Thomas that got that
got that calling.
yeah, got the calling from God, what would you tell him?
There's so many things, I would say, be careful with your time in your office. Spend that time studying, but don't make so many plans and look so far into the future that you miss the present. I think that would be my best advice to myself. I spent so much time studying for the next sermon or the next series, and I spent so much time looking forward to the next month, or what are we going to look like next year? What are we going to look like in 5 years? That there were many moments that I missed with my people. Just hanging out, just going and having coffee, right? Just going and sitting in the house with a young couple, and not having to minister to them because they were having a hard time, but just being with them. My best advice would be go back and read Mark chapter 3 real close. And what I mean by that is, if you'll remember when Jesus called the 12 disciples in Mark chapter 3, here's how that goes. It says Jesus went up onto a mountain to pray, and then he called to himself those he wanted that they might be with him. That's first. He called to those he wanted, right, that they might be with him. And then he enabled them and empowered them to go out and preach and do and serve. And I think so many times, especially early on in my ministry, it was all about serving, and it was all about equipping myself and preparing myself to go serve. And I just forgot to be with the Lord. And because I forgot to just be with the Lord, it was very easy for me to forget to be with you and to be with him and to be with them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just got so caught up in the position of pastor and the position of preaching and the studying and just the definition of it that I just really forgot the purpose of it. And the purpose of it is to love your God by loving his people. And I got so caught up in the sermon and making sure the sermon was just right that I forgot about the people who were listening to the sermon. So I would just say, be present. Be present. Don't miss the moments with your people. And don't feel like you have to preach a sermon to them, all the time. Sometimes you just need to live life with them. And I guess I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but that's probably the best advice I could give myself. Because early on in my ministry, I missed a lot of deep relationships because I was trying to dig deep in a sermon. So.
And with the office of a pastor, it's stressful. It is. I mean, there's no off switch,
right?
And especially growing up son of a pastor, I've seen behind the curtain.
Yeah.
As far as the everyday.
Yeah.
And I know for you to blow off steam, you like running.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I know very few people that like running. Okay, but
yeah.
Kind of tell me how you got into that, because this ties back in.
Yes.
Again,
God he's the orchestrator of all things. And if you don't believe that, just look at my life. So I always loved coaching and teaching. And when I was a coach and even a teacher, I remember there were times when I would sit in the desk with the students. I wouldn't get up there at the podium and teach. I would actually sit in the desk and I would have them all pile their desk around me because I wanted to be where they were. When I was coaching, I wanted to get out on the floor and run with the guys. So I would coach them while I was playing with them. So I always had this energy, right? And I'm still high energy kind of guy. I know you know me. I'm high energy. That's just how God wired me. But when I started preaching and teaching in the church, I didn't have a chance to go to the gym and run, and I didn't have a chance to go to the gym and work out with weights. And so, to be honest with you, I gained a little bit of weight, and I started having a hard time sleeping and just things like that. So I tried to pick up the weights and I tried to run a little bit, wound up tearing my rotator cuff and having to have surgery. But before I could have surgery, I had to go to the heart doctor for him to clear me to have the surgery. Found out I had high cholesterol. So to be honest with you, my running started because of my health. I remember Dr. Graves, in which I coached with him, and I coached his son at OCS. I remember Dr. Graves when he was doing my surgery. He said, "Now, Jeff," he said, "you really need to get active again. You really need to start doing some things. Man, you were a good runner. Why don't you run again?" I said, "You know what? I will." So I started running a little bit. Started running some 5K, started running some 10K, started getting healthier again. And then I was like, you know what? I can't just do this for myself. I started, running 5Ks for a purpose and 10Ks for a purpose. Got plugged in with St. Jude. Started running some of these races as what you call a St. Jude hero. And then my son, he's at Tech, and his fraternity that he's president of, St. Jude is their organization.
Mm-hmm.
He calls me up one day and says, "Dad, you've always talked about running a marathon. Why don't you really run one?" And I was like, "I don't know. That's pretty hard." He's like, "Well, go look at the Twin City Marathon in Monroe. Just go look at it. Go look at the website." So I went and looked at the website and found out Twin City Marathon, Monroe, West Monroe, it's for St. Jude. But the kicker was, it was on November the 6th, 2022. So I didn't even ask anybody how to run a marathon. I clicked sign up, paid my $150. called Marty and said, Marty, I'm running a marathon on November the 6th. And she said, wait, what? How many miles is that? I said, 26. She said, what's the furthest you've ever run? I said, like 5, maybe 6. I said, I've run some 10Ks. And so I went and ran a half marathon for St. Jude just to make sure I could kind of do it, and did fine. And yeah, I mean, can you imagine that? Like I'm running a marathon on the day my daughter died. Here's what's cool. She would have been 26 years old that year. So I run my first marathon on the day my daughter died. She would have been 26 years old, 26.2 miles, and it's for St. Jude. But when I crossed that finish line, so my daughter, Katie Beth, I thought I was dying. I was ready for them to have the ambulance or the hearse just carry me to my grave. I wanted to quit several times, and there were people like, no, you're not quitting. I remember Jonah and Katie following me a lot on the course, and my other family was at the finish line. Well, Katie Beth met me at mile 25. I was dying, like crying. I didn't even know what my legs felt like. I couldn't feel them. I was just numb. But Katie Beth was holding a picture of Hillary. And she said, Dad, this is why you're doing it. And she handed me that picture. So I ran that last mile with Hillary's picture in my hand, crossed that finish line, threw my hands up and said, God, thank you, but I will never do this again. I'm done. Like, thank you, Lord. Great opportunity, but I'm done. About a month and a half later, St. Jude found out about my story, invited me to come run the Nashville St. Jude Marathon in April of 2023. Like an idiot, I said, sure. That training was hard. Took Andy and Jeremy and Brandon McQuillan with me, my staff, my friends, ran that marathon. St. Jude basically said, we love your story. We want you to keep telling your story. And you run with passion and you run with purpose. We want you to be a St. Jude hero. We want you to be an ambassador for us. Would you run, more marathons for us? So here we are. I've run the New York City Marathon, ran the 2024 Chicago Marathon, and then back in April, I ran the Boston Marathon. And to find out, it was crazy. The Boston Marathon is the hardest one to get into. So I had to apply just to be on a St. Jude team. And I asked them, how many people are y'all picking? 5. Well, how many people are applying? Thousands. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, it ain't gonna
happen. I'm not, no, I ain't, but I'll apply. So I applied and they said, well, you'll be contacted if you make the cut. Well, I made the cut. The cut was like 3,000 or 4,000. I was like, okay, well, I won't make the next cut. Whitney, who is one of my St. Jude reps in Memphis, calls me on Wednesday, November the 6th, a month after I had run the Chicago Marathon. She calls me on Wednesday, November the 6th, and says, congratulations, you've been chosen to run the Boston Marathon.
Oh, wow.
I said, Whitney, do you know what today is? She said, it's Wednesday. I said, look at your calendar again. And she looked, and you could hear her. She said, oh, today's the day your daughter died. I said, yes, it is. Talk about like God doing cool stuff. For a long time, pretty much every day, all of those years, Marty and I just looked at November 6th, and it was just a death day. Yeah. It's just a day that reminded us that Hillary's not here. But I can tell you, when she called me on that day and told me that, she said, now, Jeff, it's a big responsibility. You have to raise $10,000. The most you've ever raised. Like I'd raised, 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000 to run Chicago. I just told her, I said, Wendy, I don't care. I'm doing it. Sign me up. She said, well, I'm going to send you paperwork, sign it. And she even said, this is a God thing. She said, because I didn't even look at the calendar to know that today was November 6th. And we haven't told anybody else, so you can't tell anybody, but you can tell your wife. So I told my wife, and then I was scared to death because this year, the Boston Marathon was run on Easter Sunday, the Monday after Easter Sunday. So I was scared to death. Like, what is my church going to think? The pastor not there to preach on Easter Sunday. But it was just too many things God lined up. So I remember calling my deacons, and I was scared to death. And every one of them, Elliot, James, all of my guys said, Jim, God has lined this up and you are doing something special with and for St. Jude, and the lives that you have an opportunity to touch there that you wouldn't touch here, how could you say no to that? And so my church family loved me and absolutely sent me on my way. We went to Hillsong Church, Mosaic Church in Boston for Easter Sunday. And then I ran that Boston Marathon. And then a few weeks later, when we got home, Jennifer and Jessica, two more incredible people at St. Jude, who are now a big part of my life. They, excuse me, Jennifer called me and said, can we do a FaceTime with you? What are you doing at, noon today? This was Friday, my off day. I said, nothing. And so I was at Chick-fil-A. Imagine that, my place to be pretty much every day of the week. But anyway, I was at Chick-fil-A, just got through eating, got in my truck, and Marty had sent me over to Hobby Lobby to get something. So I'm sitting in my truck, and Jennifer and Jessica pop up, and it's a FaceTime. And I'm like, what are y'all FaceTiming me for? What else do you want me to do? And so they told me that, they said, Jeff, you've been handpicked by our team to run the Tokyo Marathon in March of 2026. And I was like, well, that's crazy. Like, wasn't I supposed to be interviewed for this or something? They were like, no, you're our guy. We want you. And don't tell anybody, because we have to pick other team members, and they have since then. So I'm not telling anything that's not already out. But at the same time, we want you to know that you're also picked to run the London Marathon in April of 2026. And I sat there a minute. I was like, wait a minute. So Tokyo is when? And they said March 1st. I said, so London is when? And they said April 20. I said, that's like not even 2 months apart. And they said, yeah, we want you to do it. I said, well, I'm already running the Memphis Marathon in December. So I said, that's going to be 3 marathons in 5 months. They said, you can do it. We love you. We believe in you. And so again, I'm going, I want to say yes, but what's the catch?
Yeah.
And they said, well, you have to raise $10,000 for Tokyo by December 15th. And you have to raise $10,000 more by May, whatever, for the London. Scary. Because that's a lot of money that I don't have.
Yeah.
But I never blinked. I told them I can do that. We can do that. And what they didn't know was that when I signed up for Memphis, my daughter Katie Beth signed up to run as a St. Jude hero, her first marathon. And I told Katie, but she said, Dad, I don't know if I can do it. I said, well, I never knew if I could do it either. I don't know if I can either. But my words were, God is able. Because my theme verse in Boston and moving forward was 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 8, where it said, our God is able to do way more than you could ever imagine. And he says it too in Ephesians chapter 3, verses 20 and 21, I believe it is. God is able. And so that's just been my theme. God is able. And so I told Katie Beth, baby, you sign up. You can raise that money and you can absolutely run that marathon. And I'm going to train you and I'm going to help you. And I'm going to be there when you cross that finish line. So when they were telling me this, I told them I'm going to call my wife just to get her approval. But I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And they said, well, we're going to be here for you. But I told them, I said, hey, here's the thing. My body, my training, all that money, God is able. That's what I just kept saying that. And so anyway, here I am, started training this past week, actually, for the Memphis Marathon. Katie Beth has been running at Highway 132 coming towards Mangum, and she told me the other day, she said, why am I doing this? And I said, baby, because God is able, and it's for St. Jude. And I'm going to be a St. Jude hero for the rest of my life. I love them, love everything they're about, everything they're doing. I've got to meet some families. One right here in Mangum, young lady that's going through it, young girl, and a family in Ruston that I met at the airport. My plane was supposed to leave at 6 a.m. It got canceled. Didn't get to leave till 10. A family walks in. He sees my backpack. Says, sir, can I ask you a question? Do you have a patient at St. Jude? Do you work for St. Jude? And I said, no, I'm what you call a St. Jude hero. I run marathons and raise money for children that are going to St. Jude, and he said, like my son, he was carrying a little boy, not even 2 years old, and they were from Ruston. That's a God thing. I was supposed to be gone. I was supposed to be on a plane already gone, but my plane got canceled, and I got to meet him. I got to pray for him and his child, and the little baby had his eye removed a few weeks ago, hoping, praying that they got all that cancer. But you see, God just, so yeah, I love to run. I'm the crazy guy, the idiot guy that likes to run a long way.
Yeah.
In the hottest part of the year.
Look,
So,
you got quite the following.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'll see you on Facebook from time to time, and you got a group with you.
I got a group called the Running Fellas, and it's crazy. God's put us together. Because I'm gonna be honest with you. You asked me earlier about pastoring some of those lows, and one of the lows was I didn't really have a lot of friends, and that wasn't anybody's fault but my own. I just kind of pushed people away, and I really kind of hit a state of depression there, and God used the running. Again, God orchestrates things. One of my buddies, Justin guy, he's my best friend now, one of my best friends, saw me at a race and said, "Hey, are you the faster pastor? Are you the guy that I've been following on Strava?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, who are you?" And we've been running ever since. And it started with me and Peyton and, just three of us. All of a sudden, Raphael, jumps in. So there's four of us. We call ourselves the Running Fellas Old Guard.
Yeah.
Well, now that group, I don't even know how many of us is in it. We're meeting tomorrow morning, actually, at PJ's Coffee in West Monroe, and we're going to do a long run. We got guys, girls, and we pray together. We live life together, and we run together, and it's fun.
That is, and look,
It's God.
your
God.
your story is so amazing. Just
God's story.
How everything, I mean,
It all ties together.
yes.
And look, all I know is I can make plans, but God's plans are so much. I'm just waiting to see. I'm waiting to see what's next. And there may be some hard stuff, but it's going to be okay. Because God works for good for those who love the Lord. And He works according to His purposes. So that's who I am, man. I don't know how much more you want, and if I gave you too much, I'm sorry, but
No, again, the way your story just fits together. And I tell my Sunday school class all the time, when God puts something together, it's seamless.
Yes.
And it fits easy. It's
Yes.
not a forced anything.
Nope. And just going through the moments, and I know we all have our hard parts and our hard struggles, and much of it is self-inflicted,
Mm-hmm.
What I tell people is, don't let your lows get you too low. Don't let your highs get you too high. Make sure you got people around you that love God, because if they love God, they're going to know how to love you, and they won't give up on you. And that's me, man. I just got people around me, who just hold me accountable, who love me when they don't agree with me,
Mm-hmm.
love me when they don't understand me. And I still just don't know why. I don't know how to explain how good God is to me, but He is real, real good. Very, very good.
And with these interviews and everything, we are big men's ministry.
Yeah.
That's the key for us.
Yes.
So one question: if you had a guy, say from a retreats are big in this area and everything.
Just spoke at one meeting this week. So
you have a guy that's new to the faith.
Yeah.
And he asked, Brother Jeff, where do I start? What's your advice?
My advice is I'm going to talk to any man right now, whether you've ever been on a retreat or not been on a retreat, whether you've been in church or not. I think somewhere along the way, we all have had some kind of friend.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've had a best friend, good friend. Here's what I would say to any man who is searching. Okay. I believe in God. I believe in godly men and women. And I believe godly men need to invest in other men. And I believe godly women need to invest in other women. And so if you're a man out there and you're searching right now, I'm telling you, God loves you. God wants you. He is pursuing you. And all you got to do is say yes to him. And when you say yes to him, he is going to give you an opportunity to come alongside of a godly man who is ready to pour into you. And so I would say it's so important to find a godly man and just say, I need you. I need help. I know you're not perfect, but I know you love God. And because you love God, you know how to love me. And I would say just find that. It's out there. I'm just telling you, it's available. There are churches all around you. There are men's ministry groups all around you. These men's retreats, I tell people all the time, and I just shared this with a group Tuesday night that I'm going to be the spiritual director of. Don't make a retreat and don't make a church your idol. The retreat, just like the church, is a tool that God will use to help you, to captivate you, if you will. Okay. But these men's retreats, listen, I'm a believer in what God can do and will do through these retreats, women's retreats as well, because I've seen that with my wife. But yeah, I would say you got to find a godly man. And look, people say, well, what's a godly man? Look, what does a godly man do? It's not hard. Okay. A godly man is filled with the Spirit and is going to be demonstrating the fruits of the Spirit. You're going to see gentleness. You're going to see kindness. You're going to see respect. You're going to see all of these things unfolding in the way that he treats other people and the way he talks to other people. So, yes, find that kind of man and just buddy up with that man. And be honest, be open. And I promise you that man is going to be honest and open with you. And, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to share, because that's men we are.
Yeah.
We're afraid to open up. But I'm just going to tell you, when you share and when you open up with a godly man, you're going to find that you'll be strengthened in ways you can't even possibly imagine. So absolutely plug in to a men's ministry, a small group, plug into a church body, a church family that preaches the love of God, preaches Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, and just live that kind of life. Live the kind of life where you can see those fruits unfolding, the fruits of the Spirit. I'm just telling you, that's where I am right now, and I want to mentor. I want to mentor those kind of people. That's why I love this. So this running group that I'm with, I'm not necessarily their pastor. Now, some of them, they go to a church with me, but I'm not trying to be their pastor. I'm just trying to be a godly man for them. And I'm going to tell you something. There's a lot of godly men with me as well. Yeah. And they are holding me accountable, and they are encouraging me in my walk, not just as a pastor, but as a husband, a father, and just a man of God. And we need each other. We need each other. I mean, you're a big part of my life now. And I believe that you and I have sharpened each other. And I pray that we can continue to do that. And this is what every man needs. They need a brother in Christ that they can count on, depend upon, but also walk with. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
No, that the brotherhood.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I feel like, especially today, men are missing that.
They are. And lots of them are.
And they're
trying
isolated.
They're trying to find it in their job.
Yep. They're
trying to find it in their marriage. They're trying to find it in their children. They're trying to find it in their hobbies. And I'm sorry, it's not there.
Nope.
Okay. My wife is we are one flesh. There's no doubt. I mean, it's God, my wife, my children. I've got things lined up correctly, but my wife, there's something that she can't do to me and for me that you can as a brother in Christ. Yeah. And I absolutely recognize that now. And she is thankful. Mm-hmm. She has told me many times, I wish you had godly men that you could be friends with, that you could just live life with. And now she's like, I think I prayed too much because you got a bunch of them. But no, in all seriousness, my marriage is better because of godly men in my life.
Oh, you can, in my life, yes. you can look at it from yes. a 1,000-foot view and say, okay, this is the time when he started surrounding himself with godly men.
And you can say that I guarantee you, my church members can tell you that as a pastor.
Yeah.
They can see that. Absolutely.
Because it changes everything.
The fingerprints of God are all over.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So as we wrap this up, one question I want to leave everybody with, all of our guests. So when this is over, when this earthly life is over, we've gained our eternal reward. What do you want your legacy to speak to? What do you want people to look back and say?
I want them to say Jesus Christ is real. Jesus Christ saved him and changed his heart. And it wasn't just about the other side, heaven. He lived his life in glory and honor to Jesus Christ. You don't have to remember my name. You don't have to remember how many years I was pastor. You don't have to remember how fast I ran a marathon or how many marathons I ran. Just remember Jesus. And just know that Jesus is real and that Jesus Christ saves. And you can see that he did that to me. And that Jesus Christ not only gives you eternal life, he gives you full life right now. Just let it be Jesus. That's it. Let it be Jesus.
Ain't no better way to end than that.
That's it, brother.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.